백훈종의 전지적 비트코인 시점.
Preston, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
It's an honor to meet you, to be honest with you. Welcome to Korea. It was a really wonderful speech on the stage you just gave out to Korean audiences. Can you briefly introduce yourself to my subscribers, just in case they don't know?
So Preston Pish, I'm the podcaster. I'm also a general partner at Ego Death Capital, which is a venture capital firm that invests in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And I've done the podcast for, a decade now.
Wow.
Yeah, probably about 600 or 700 interviews, I'd say.
Wow. I always watch your interview show. I listen to your podcast when I run. Based on what you just said on the stage, I had a question.
Yeah.
So Lynn Allen says, no, actually, Michael Saylor says Bitcoin is a store of value.
Yeah.
But Jack Dorsey says Bitcoin is a failed technology if it's not used daily basis.
Yeah.
And Lynn Alden said, okay, both are right, but there's a step, right?
Yes.
First, store of value, and then medium of exchange.
Yeah.
Do you have any opinion on this subject?
Yeah, I think that I look at it almost like water. So if you have water and it's cold, it's frozen, and then it becomes a liquid, then it becomes a gas at a higher energy state. I see Bitcoin kind of maturing in a similar way where it's very early. I would consider it still very much like an ice. And what has to happen in order for it to be used as a medium of exchange in day-to-day transactions, it needs to reach a higher energy state with use and utility and just global understanding and adoption. So the way that I see that maturing is you're not going to have the world want to use it as a form of settlement as far as like payments to go buy a water or a coffee until it's just so understood that it's the best form of money. And that takes time. And it has to be a store of value before it becomes something like that.
Right.
So what we've seen to date is, I would say, this past 10 years since its inception, you have just a small group, really truly a small group of people that have been talking about why it's better. Some have started to believe in that idea and to agree with that idea, and they're choosing to store their value in it. I would argue that we're probably at a pivotal point where the store of value use case is going to really kick into high gear in the coming 5 to 10 years. And where I think you're going to see that is in corporate treasury adoption. MicroStrategy is obviously kind of leading the way in that. But I think, again, in 5 to 10 years, you're going to have Bitcoin on almost every single balance sheet on the planet. And as it does that and it becomes more valuable, then you're going to have more vendors that are saying, well, why am I accepting dollars? I just want to start accepting Bitcoin for. And so then the form of payment starts to kick in being used. And that's where I would say the water turns into a gas just through natural incentives. The people that think that that's going to happen without natural incentives taking it there, I think are kind of not understanding how it's all going to mature and how it's all going to develop.
Right. I don't doubt about Bitcoin's destiny, but what I worry about is people's perspective on Bitcoin. Here in Korea, people are suffering from the stock market plummeting, real estate price, just Gangnam's real estate price going up, but the other parts of the Korea
Are not.
are not.
Yeah.
So, but still, they are having a hard time choosing Bitcoin as a solution. Why do you think Korean people are having so much hard time to figuring out?
I think it's a really difficult problem to understand. And I think most people, because of where we're at in this long-term fiat like decay, in order for them to make money, in order for most people just to survive, they're working really, really hard just in their day-to-day operations of whatever company they're working for or whatever company they're running. And so their time is focused and their attention is on this other stuff. They don't have time to go get an economics degree and understand how the petrodollar system is failing and how there's going to be a new system. Like, those are all ideas that are like really complex. You have to understand game theory. You have to understand energy, right? You have to understand energy markets. You have to understand monetary policy. You have to understand, the list goes on. And your everyday person, they're raising 2 kids. They're doing stuff that's not that. But where I think that doesn't matter, because you look at that and say, well, Bitcoin's never going to be successful if that's the case. But where I think it's going to actually, how it's going to unfold is most people are going to own Bitcoin and not even know that they own it. And how are they going to do that is again, the corporate treasuries. So you're going to have more companies, call it Samsung. Let's say they take a 1 or 2% position in Bitcoin. And your everyday person who's working hard every day, they own Samsung stock. Well, de facto, through the surrogate, they're actually owning a small piece of Bitcoin, whether they don't realize it or not. And over time, like that's going to keep the value appreciating. It's going to continue to be in the global conscious and thought. And then it's just going to slowly take more and more root over time.
So I also watch X or LinkedIn and social media all the time.
Yeah.
And there are just too many companies announcing they're now Bitcoin treasury companies.
Yeah.
Some analysts predicted there will be like more than 300 companies. But I also have a worry that this will be turned out as a bubble. So somebody said this season's altcoin is corporate treasury.
Yeah.
Do you agree with the...
Well, I think to fully understand like how it's going to play out from a securitization standpoint, if the company, let's just take MicroStrategy as an example. MicroStrategy is trading above the MNAV or the Bitcoin that they have on the stock is trading higher than the value of the Bitcoin. So there's an incentive for Michael to issue more stock, buy the Bitcoin. Because if let's just say the MNAV is 2, right? The stock is trading twice as much as the Bitcoin. He's effectively able to, if Bitcoin's at 100,000 today, he's effectively able to go out and buy Bitcoin for 50,000 in that scenario.
Right.
But where this is going to get strange is if Bitcoin, or if the stock starts trading below the MNAV, he's actually incentivized, and whether he does this or not, that's a whole nother question. But for all the other companies that are doing a strategy like this beyond Michael, if the price of the stock goes below the price of the Bitcoin, now that company is incentivized to sell the Bitcoin and buy the stock.
Right.
It's the exact opposite.
Yes.
And so that could add tremendous sell pressure to the price of Bitcoin. It would compound on the sell side. So what's happening, on the bid can actually happen exactly the same on the other side as it's going down. So to answer your question,
Sure.
the answer is, yeah, it could be. It could be. Because you have this incentive where the companies that are incentivized to buy can actually turn into the same companies that are incentivized to sell to buy their stock back, because that would actually be, by the math, would be accretive to the shareholders. If I'm a shareholder, I would imagine if the MNAV drops below 1, I suspect a lot of MicroStrategy shareholders are going to be going to Michael telling them to sell Bitcoin. Okay. I mean, I won't be one of them, but there will be.
There will be. I also think the same. So there are 3 types of different preferred stock Michael issued, right? Mm-hmm. Strike, Strive, and Stride. Do you think they are safe instruments for them to, raise the capital?
So when you think about just the capital structure and the methods that he's using to go about it, he's got $60 billion worth of Bitcoin on his balance sheet.
Right.
So if, let's just say Bitcoin goes down by half, it goes down to 50,000. He's now with $30 billion of Bitcoin there. He has plenty of buying power to service the dividends, the cumulative preferred dividends, and the interest expense, which is pretty low for the convertible debt that he has. So from a health standpoint, because that's what we're really talking about is the financial health of the company, he's in like incredible health of the company. Now, would the stock price go down a lot? Oh yeah. It would get, in that scenario that I described, it would get punished. And I would imagine that the stock of the price would go below the MNAV of the treasury, which then goes to this scenario that you're talking, which is he'd probably need to sell Bitcoin and buy the common stock back, which would be the most accretive thing to do for the shareholders in that short period of time.
Wow.
So these are like the mechanics of it. But so somebody looking at it from the outside, they're just looking at the sheer numbers of the issuance, like $1 billion here, $1 billion there. And they're saying, there's no way this is safe. But if you really know how to do security analysis and you're looking at it, you're like, I think it's very safe, but just because of the value of the Bitcoin and how much the drawdown could be versus like what he owes in recurring payments. And like, he's got plenty there to endure something. Now, if it would drop by 50% and stay there for a decade, then maybe he's got issues. But we haven't seen that. 50% drop, 80% drop usually lasts a year, and then you start getting into some type of recovery. And the fact that you can't print more Bitcoin makes it so inelastic, which causes those rebounds to come so quickly. And my expectation is that you're going to continue to see rebounds like that in the future.
Koreans do love MSCI stocks. There was a statistic before that MSCI was once number 4 most traded US stocks among Korean investors.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on MSTY?
If I had a mandate for basically being an income investor, I would think that would be one of the best things you could own. And it goes back to, well, how much yield can I get? And the answer is a lot for the financial health risk of the company, which I just, characterize as being low for how strong his balance sheet is, right? So I think that that's one of the reasons why you've seen it oversubscribed every time he's issued something like this, why it's the best performing convertible debt on the market is because of they're getting a ton of yield with very little health risk of the company, in my humble opinion.
Great.
At least today.
At least today. There was a fight between Donald Trump and Elon Musk last night. It's all over the internet right now.
Yeah.
Do you think they will fix their relationship?
I was very concerned about the relationship when it first, I'll tell you a story.
Okay.
You ready to hear a story?
Yeah, sure.
So Nashville, the Bitcoin conference in Nashville that happened in the summer of 2024.
Yeah.
Donald Trump and Elon were supposed to be on stage together.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And leading up to Donald Trump, if you remember, Donald Trump went on stage, or he was delayed by like 45 minutes before he went on stage. And everybody's like, what is happening? It must be security issues. It must be this and that.
Yeah.
But what it actually was Elon Musk, at least this is the story I was told, and this is hearsay, so
Okay.
whatever. What I understood was Elon was flying back from the Olympics over in France, in Paris, and was supposed to be on stage with Donald Trump to basically show that they were teaming at the Bitcoin conference. They were having trouble coming to agreements on what that was going to be on stage.
Oh.
Okay. And Elon was literally shooting an approach into the Nashville airport, 15 minutes before all of this was supposed to happen on stage. He was going to land, he was going to get escorted to the conference, they were going to go on stage together. Elon shoots the approach coming he's going to land, and then didn't land and took off and went to Texas. And that was the whole reason from the get-go, from the beginning, you had these two whales with a whole lot of personality, and I would say a whole lot of ego on both sides. And then they kind of came together and they kind of figured it out. But the fact that it's breaking apart, literally right now, does not surprise me, because you have two killer whale, egocentric type people that just think that they're...
Right.
Yeah.
But you also said on the stage, money could be a reason too, right? Money. So...
Well, the thing that I just don't understand, what I was really kind of getting at on stage was I just can't believe that... Well, and I've got to kind of caveat this too. I find it really surprising that the richest person in the world, who you would think would understand fiat better than anybody, would understand that nothing stops this train and that governments have to keep expanding the monetary supply.
Right.
Right? I would think that would be just obvious to him. And Elon has Bitcoin on his balance sheet, and he has, I think, since 2020. So why would he have Bitcoin on the balance sheet at Tesla if he didn't understand it? So it seems like he understands it, but then his actions kind of keep reinforcing that maybe he doesn't. He's really difficult to figure out and understand.
Doesn't really disclose his
Yeah.
on Bitcoin. So do you think Donald Trump has to keep kicking the can down the road? He has to print more and more?
He has to print. I mean, the way that the entire fractional reserve system works is you have to keep expanding it, because when you don't, you're going to go into a recession. When you go into a recession, you can't raise tax revenues because all the tax revenues are down. The companies aren't making money, so they're not going to pay taxes, which makes the financial debt even worse,
right,
which they have to print to offset. So the best solution for the governments is you want to create as little volatility in the cascading impairment as possible. If they let it get away, they have to print way more than they would have if they just kind of kept it ticking up at a nice, gradual pace without a lot of volatility. Volatility equals more printing. To follow it on.
So Korea is also on I think Korea is not we also have our currency, KRW, right?
Yep.
And the new government is now talking about KRW stablecoin. I think they're going to issue.
Yeah. But I heard it's CBDC.
I think there's a high possibility it'll lead up to becoming a CBDC in the end.
Yeah.
CBDC should be stopped, I think. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, at the end of the day, a CBDC is just overt control. You could argue that Tether or Circle is a de facto CBDC.
Yeah.
But calling it a CBDC is just the government coming out and saying, no, we are going to control like overtly, they're just saying, we will control this. If we don't like how you're spending it, we can stop that. Because that's the dangers of a CBDC is just like, I didn't like what you said online, and therefore you're not allowed to spend inside this latte complex.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Crazy.
That's really scary and something that needs to be avoided at all costs. And, if there's one thing I would tell the Korean people is you want to try to avoid that with everything you got. Through education so that people understand how dangerous it can become. And anybody who actually likes freedom, there's no way they could ever be for a CBDC. It's impossible.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you as a final question.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say to the Korean Bitcoiners or those who don't know about Bitcoin yet, but they love to get out of this poverty?
Yeah. Bitcoin's very complex. It's difficult to understand if you're just showing up. And I understand why so many people look at it and say, oh, that's a scheme or that's a scam or whatever, because on the face of it, you're talking about money that's been created by somebody you don't even know and people understand how hacks work. And so like all of these things is why I think people are scared of it. And then they look at the volatility and they see the price for one and it's like the equivalent of buying 2 cars. And they're saying, how in the world does anybody own that?
Yeah.
I understand that perception. But what I would tell people is there's something really, really deep and profound and important that's happening in a problem that it's solving. And if you don't understand the problem that it's solving, you're never going to understand Bitcoin. So they need to invest a lot of time and a lot of energy in first understanding the problem that Bitcoin's solving. Then they got to understand the technical nuance of Bitcoin. And then they're going to be able to understand why so many people want to own it, why they want to hold it, and why it will protect them from, severe debasement that I think is currency debasement that's going to happen in the future.
Thank you, Preston. Where can they find you, like my audiences?
I have a podcast that's called We Study Billionaires. I'm also on Twitter at Preston Pish.
Thank you. Thanks for having this interview today.
Thank you. Yeah, great questions.